No, please don't. I don't want to be sent to the underworld.
You needn't worry, because you are bound for a better place. The Soul Society. There, your soul will be at peace.
Hold on. Corruption, a false sense of justice, trenches? Nah, this can't be the peaceful place Rukia was talking about. Yeah, let's get into it. First off, I gotta say thanks for all the love on part 1, because even though my audio was shitty, like really bad, a lot of y'all withstood it, and that's so real because I probably would have turned it off. But yeah, in that vid, we established that Ichigo is definitely in a toxic relationship with the Soul Society, from getting used as a tool to them constantly lying to him. But regardless of any of that, due to certain bonds there and his need to protect his loved ones, Ichigo is gonna stick beside them. But although the treatment he receives is pretty bad, the way they operate in general is much worse. And I can't sit here and complain about how they move towards him without getting to the root of the problem. We gotta look at their overall system. As I said before, I never seen the Soul Society as straight up good guys, and I honestly don't think we're supposed to. Our first introduction to them was pretty crazy. There's no way the good guys are pulling up on Rukia the way they did.
This is it.
Two armed men attacking a defenseless young girl. I have to tell you, it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah, clearly the villain's here. And I seen someone say Bleach is about bad guys versus terrible guys versus even worse guys. And I gotta say, that's pretty accurate. They constantly display themselves as morally gray and at times unnecessary evil. So the purpose of this vid isn't to convince y'all that they're the villains or whatever. I think we're well aware at this point. This is more so about why are they like this. And you know, ultimately looking at the biggest lie told in Bleach. Cause no funny, I think Bleach has one of the worst afterlives in anime. But this is just what I see as the most problematic issues within the Soul Society. Number 1, we got the law above all mindset. 2, a false sense of justice. 3, all the corruption that goes on, mostly Tokinada. 4, trenches. 5, that necessary evil, mostly Mayuri. And last but not least, it's history and keeping the cycle alive. But there's a lot to unpack with that third and last one, because I feel like a lot of key lore and questions people have had for years are answered in Can't Figure Your Own World. But anime only fans wouldn't know, because more often than not, they're not gonna go out their way and read the novel. And that's where I come in, because I myself used to be one of those people. So I feel like it's kind of my duty now to put y'all on. But anyway, starting with our first issue. So, from the beginning of the series, it is very clear that most people within the Soul Society have a law above all type of mindset. Maybe not as extreme as others, but it's still there. And I do want to mention that this mindset is a cultural thing within Japan itself, which is probably why we see it so much in anime. They take the law a little more seriously, just not always to the same extent. But yeah, the Soul Society arc gives us a real good look at how far it goes in Bleach. We see multiple people have their doubts about Rukia's execution, particularly that it seemed extreme for her crime. But even with all that doubt, it wasn't quite enough to go against the law. But a much stronger example that really shows how deep the mindset goes would be how Byakuya was moving the entire arc. From the get-go, he goes extremely hard to enforce Rukia's execution. Mind you, this is her brother, so people like Ukitake and Ichigo question him on it. Like, you don't feel no way about your sister being executed? And his answer to both of them is basically, hey man, the law is the law. From there, I was like, damn, this place sure is strict. It took Byakuya not 1, not 2, but 3 fights and being poked for him to finally explain to Rukia why he's been going so hard. And still it was walkie. He says before all this, he broke the law by marrying Rukia's sister, and then broke it again by later honoring her last wishes and adopting Rukia. After that, he vowed to never go against the law again, especially with him being a noble. So I can understand him being stuck between a rock and a hard place when it came to Rukia's execution. Plus, due to her looking so much like her sister and Byakuya keeping his distance because of that, they weren't all that close. So I can also give the benefit of the doubt and say, hey, maybe he wasn't looking at it like, oh nah, my sister is being executed like others would. Which is still crazy, because even the worst siblings we see in anime would have been trying to make some type of moves on the low. Byakuya did the opposite, because where does enforcing the execution as hard as he was come into play? Like, he could have at least been neutral about it like some of the other captains. But Byakuya, not only being a noble but the head of the Kuchiki clan, felt like he had to take it up a notch and set an example. Like, literally said, if they don't follow the law, who will? Which, yeah, but I don't know, man. I feel like he was playing his part a little too well. Like, how are you gonna say body your deceased wife's picture before going to her little sister's execution?
It is almost time, Master.
Very well, then. I'm off now. Hisana.
Then when Ichigo actually stops it, you're one of the first ones to press him and then go on to say, yeah, now I'm gonna execute her by my own hand. Like, whoa, buddy. Not gonna lie, him doing a complete 180 later in the series, I honestly forgot how much of a dickhead he was when we first met him.
Captain, Renji's been badly hurt without treatment.
Then I'm afraid he'll die. It was his choice to enter that fight alone. The very sight of him still breathing offends me. Take him away.
He's cold as ice, isn't he? Makes you wonder if he's even got a heart inside him.
And sorry, but I gotta cut in and also say the way he says boy during this arc.
You should know better than to talk so big, boy. I thought I warned you about not talking so big, boy.
I don't know, man. It got some malice to it. I keep giving him passes though. Clearly, he got so caught up in trying not to go against the law again that he starts enforcing it way more than he needed to, and eventually even starts thinking that what he's doing is justified, which actually leads us right into our next issue, a false sense of justice. There's a very important combo that takes place this same arc. When Ichigo stops Rukia's execution, Ukitake and Shunsui do their part by stopping the Sokyoku, or the fire chicken as one of y'all called it, when it charges again. Head Captain Yamamoto obviously didn't like this and says it's inexcusable, then presses them. But rewatching now, I noticed that Shunsui and Ukitake were legit trying to talk to Yamamoto on why they did what they did, and even asked him some very valid questions on how their system determines justice. But he just wasn't trying to hear all that. He just kept spamming that the law is the law, and fighting right now would lead to justice for what they did. I'm jacking he just didn't have an answer for them.
You have no right to decide for yourselves what is right and wrong. It is your duty to accept the true justice of the world.
Then what is the true justice of the world, Master? Who determines right and wrong?
Did you not hear me before? The time for words has passed.
But yeah, all that enforcing and upholding the law no matter what is just one version of what some will call justice. We later see that others have their own definitions. And not gonna lie, with all these different interpretations on what justice really is within the same system, you just gotta know it can't lead to anything good. That's where people like Kaname and Genjo come into play. After their experiences that we will get into, both of them carried out what they seen as justice. And this is where the Soul Society crosses over from just flawed to actually corrupt. Like, it gets crazy. Now, on the surface, it would seem like Central 46 is the main issue. They make tons of questionable judgments, like offing someone over a sword. And time after time, regardless of any appeals, we see whatever they say goes, which is definitely dangerous because Aizen showed us how easy it was for him to use that to his advantage. He framed Kisuke for the hollow experiments, which got him and the visors banished. Then later off Central 46 pretended to be them and sent that fake execution order for Rukia, which is all crazy. But Tokinada? That's a whole nother story. Keep in mind, y'all, the four great noble families and Central 46 are basically on the same level when it comes to governing power in the Soul Society, with the nobles low-key edging out due to their influence. Tokinada is a noble who will eventually become the head of the Tsunayashiro clan, and the perfect example of the Soul Society's corruption, because he really uses his noble privilege to its fullest extent. Proudly too. If you ever played Brave Souls or read the novel, you know exactly who this is. And besides being an ultra troll, like, no funny, his mouth is crazy, he's also the focal point to why a lot of things go left, even though he'll try to be funny and deny it. So basically, he's Danzo without a reason, and if he was just bored. I mean, he had a reason. I guess it just wasn't what any of us were expecting. After he discovers the Soul Society's true history, aka the original sin, he starts bugging, bro. He feels like the world needs to know this info as well. And also, if the world is built on something like that, there is no reason for him to be good. In other words, nihilism. So he starts using the fact that the system is already corrupt to his utmost advantage, literally just to stir the pot. Starting with the Kaname situation, the whole reason he switches up and aligns with Aizen is because his good friend Kakyo was murdered by her husband, with no real punishment, because hello, noble. In the novel, we find out the husband was none other than Tokinada. First off, I already thought he was foul just based off the way he treated his wife. Like, he was really her biggest hater. So when one of their mutual friends pressed him on it, I was all for it. Unfortunately, Tokinada just trolls him, talking mad shit, and that obviously pissed the friend off. So they start shaking, and when Kakyo goes to break it up, he smokes her and the friend, then goes back to his family and claims she was cheating on him, and that the friend offed her but attacked him, so he was forced to defend himself. Even after that bullshit excuse, he wasn't formally punished. Apparently, Shunsui had to even push for him to be placed in the maggot's nest, and that only happened because Shunsui himself is a lesser noble. Kaname, hearing this, of course was upset that his friend's murderer was basically walking free. So while Kaname was still trying to press the issue with Central 46, Tokinada pulls up. And not gonna lie, with what he does next, I see exactly why Tosin went down the path he did. So Tokinada pulls him aside and identifies himself as just one of Kakyo's comrades, then explains why her killer wasn't being punished. Right as they both agree this is foul and unjust, he asks him if he would get back for her if he could, even though it would be against everything she stood for. Kaname says nah, realizing his friend would never want that. And that's where Tokinada is like, good choice, cause I'm the one who did it, and if you said yeah to the whole revenge thing, I would have smoked you right here. Kaname of course crashes out, rightfully so, but Tokinada basically tells him to chill out like a good little boy and continue to do what Kakyo would have wanted, cause she would have forgave him too. Then has the guards throw him out the Serite back to Rukangai. So yeah, clearly from Kaname's point of view, the system is corrupt and unjust. At this point it would be crazy to ignore that. So he becomes a Soul Reaper himself. Then we see how that went.
What is justice? I say, it's neither just nor virtuous to live in peace and let the dead go unavenged. It is evil!
Later in the novel, we also find out much more about Ginjo and the whole badge situation. In the last vid, I was telling y'all that although the badge was presented as a sort of certification for substitute Soul Reapers, it turned out to really be a tracking device plus a power limiter. Basically, a leash, which like I said before, isn't that crazy. It was more so the secrecy and how they went about everything. But anyways, Ichigo is just another victim of their shady badge tactic. Ginjo was the first. And although Ukitake was the one passing these badges out, he was originally against the idea. Tokinada was the one who pushed for it, claiming they needed to be watched, but really it was all a part of his plan because his family wanted to off the Fullbringers for multiple reasons. The badge just helped them actually do it. But yeah, once Ginjo found out it was Soul Reapers who offed his friends, he got back. Tokinada then goes to Ukitake like, I don't know what's up with your boy, but he offed our Soul Reapers and his own friends. He's tweaking. Then even showed him visual proof. At that point, Ukitake had no choice but to assume Ginjo was crashing out over the badge, and it didn't help that Ginjo also specifically offed Ukitake's subordinates after this too. So yeah, Tokinada definitely did his big one with that as well. And there's plenty more examples of him plotting like this, like when he set a hit on his own clan head just so he could become the new one. Or when he told Nanao he didn't have anything to do with her mom's execution, the sword situation I mentioned earlier, just to later admit to Shinsui that he had plenty to do with it. But while his actions are OD, what really makes Tokinada stand out as a villain isn't just what he does, it's what he says. Like, and I thought Gin was a rage baiter, but compared to him, anytime someone presses him about something, he's basically like, but I'm a noble though, and then brings up whatever law to back it up. He's also really good at pointing the finger back at people, and it's just like, damn, you can't do nothing around this nigga. Shinsui brings up him passing powers to Hokane, who he wants to make the new Soul King, by the way, and he literally was like, yeah, but didn't y'all illegally restore Ichigo's powers? In a noble meeting with Byakuya and Yoruichi, he was talking crazy about the Soul King. Byakuya tells him noble shouldn't speak like that, and he hits him with, you want to talk about what noble should or shouldn't be doing? Didn't you try to have your little sister executed? Yeah, he kinda really must have been dumb for leaving her sister's fate in the hands of a noble. Then after saying all that, he's gonna be like, but hey, I'm not trying to pick a fight. Bro, I know I can be a tough critic when it comes to the Soul Society, but Tokinada low-key be clocking shit even more than me. There's too many times while reading where I had my mouth open from something he said. Plus he even said the same thing I was saying last vid about Ichigo deserving more praise for his deeds. And while I do agree with Nelliel when she said Ichigo isn't the type to want that attention anyways, let's not act like that's the sole reason why they don't do it. Y'all were gonna do it regardless. But yeah, Tokinada may be foul, but I'm sorry, he's a funny ass villain. He's really a menace because that's what the system allows. And I really hope that's who Kubo was recently talking about when he said a new character, non the manga, will be in the finale. But moving on, we gotta talk about this trenches situation. Alright, now this is usually the main thing people look at when thinking of Rukia lying to that one soul, because most souls that go to the Soul Society end up in one of Rukangai's 80 districts. Well, technically 320 districts, it's just split by 80 per direction. And unfortunately, more than half of those districts are shitty. Not always to the same level we see from Rukia, Renji, or Kampachi's past now, but still, if you're not a noble or a part of the 13 court guard squads, you're not living in the bougie parts of town, buddy. But hey, it's not all trenches. There's actually levels to this. Basically, the closer you get to the Serite, the better the districts get. Districts 1 through 10 are pretty safe, cleaner, aka the suburbs. Districts 11 to about 40, it's mixy. You're not in the best neighborhoods, but it's sustainable. So still the suburbs, but it can get active. Districts 41 to 80 though, poverty, gangs, starvation, really the trenches. And I always see people mention how at least every soul don't gotta eat, which yeah, only the strong souls need to. But at the same time, every strong soul doesn't just join the Goatee 13 like Rukia and Renji. So someone's starving. And I don't know, man, starving in heaven just seems crazy. And yes, I know this technically isn't heaven, but the fact there's even poverty going on in any afterlife that isn't hell is crazy to think about. Kubo had to be trolling writing that in. So during the time they were disappearing because of Aizen's hollow experiments, they casually mentioned the fact that residents don't be having shoes past a certain district number. And it just dawned on me how many other Rukangai disadvantages are said throughout the series that everyone kind of just brushes over. And I don't blame people, because the Soul Society themselves treat it so casually that I almost even skip past them. But make no mistake, it's not just about being in the trenches. Say you got one of the Soul King fragments like we see with Rangiku or Kakyo, it's very likely someone will eventually target you to snatch that bag. No one cares about birthdays. Most times you never even find your real family members. Shit, even Tokinada was flexing how much easier it would be to off a random citizen from there because no one really cares. Oh, and something else I noticed rewatching was just like in real life when you make it out the hood, there's always gonna be people who just won't let you forget where you came from. Anyways, the districts being like this isn't just by coincidence. Everyone in the Serite actually benefits from Rukangai functioning this way. The Goti 13 gets new members from strong souls and survivors. They're used as test subjects for experiments by people like Mayuri and Aizen. Even in the 1,000-year blood war where Mayuri has to off 28,000 souls to restore balance, he just picks right from Rukangai like it's nothing. And I guess it kinda is, which is fucked up because those citizens can still feel pain, but if they die, they're eventually gonna be reincarnated, so I don't know how to feel about that. Which actually brings us to our next issue, which was that necessary evil. Now there's plenty of examples of them doing shit that is necessary but still foul, from secretly preparing to make Ichigo the new Soul King to even the genocide of the Quincy's. But not gonna lie, I'd much rather talk about what they consistently allow. Now it's pretty clear that the Soul Society will work with people they don't necessarily like the actions of. Look at Kenpachi or shit, even Aizen in the 1,000-year blood war. But recruiting Mayuri, and not just recruiting, but making him a captain, I feel like this is a good example of them displaying themselves as that necessary evil. Because when you recruit a guy who has done similar or worse things than the so-called villain y'all are up against, well, that's the definition right there. You gotta fight fire with fire. And in the 1,000-year blood war, I don't know why everyone was complaining so much about getting help from Aizen, but y'all are a-okay with working with Mayuri. I mean, I do know why. Aizen was putting in pain against y'all. But all I'm saying is Mayuri has done some truly immoral and unethical shit too. Sometimes even to y'all. Like, even his backstory was off. Kubo has revealed on Clubhouse that before the official research and development group, Mayuri was actually originally a part of the unofficial one, led by Senju Maru. When she left though, we're not exactly sure what happened, but him and Akon end up in the Maggot's Nest, a place where potential criminals are held, which is actually a problem all in itself. Labeling niggas as threats before they ever do anything, it's given the Sybil system, because not everyone in there is on bad timing, and if anything, that might actually make them go crazy. But even with knowing that, I don't know, man, this is Mayuri we're talking about. I really find it hard to believe he did absolutely nothing to end up there. Like, look why Tokinada was in there. Plus, he was the only one chained up. So essentially, Mayuri was locked in the Maggot's Nest for God knows what, but because his intelligence was so up there, he was recruited by Kisuke, and then later even replaced him as the head of research and development when he got exiled. But you know, in hindsight, I should have realized something was wrong with Sun from when he first blew up his own squad members, just to possibly hit Orihime and Uryu. I didn't think much of it at the time because if you remember their last opponent, Jirobo, I believe his name was, he was fighting real dirty too, so I just chalked it up to, okay, niggas like fighting dirty here. It wasn't until he said he experimented on Quincy's, including Uryu's grandpa, then proceeded to show him a picture of him where I was like, huh. And what he said he did to them was way worse in the manga than what he said in the anime. Then you just got shit like this.
Let go! Oh no.
Do you have to make so much noise over there?
Captain, sir, please. May I have some of the medicine as well? Sure, I can't sustain my life force much longer.
You insect! Are you suggesting there's something wrong with your body? That an insignificant slash could cause it to fail?
And yeah, so moral of the story, if Tokinada is Danzo, but worse, then Mayuri is Orochimaru but times 10. And the way the Soul Society handles him is pretty different, because at least when the third Hokage catches him, yeah, he didn't do what he was supposed to do with stopping him, but hey, he at least told him to stop, and then Orochimaru just ends up dipping. The Soul Society, on the other hand, they fully enable Mayuri from the get-go, because hello, necessary evil. He's very useful to them, plus I think they kind of like that he's not afraid to make certain tough decisions without hesitation. hesitation, like we see with him offering the 28,000 Rukangai souls to restore balance. Yamamoto does question him on why he didn't ask permission first, but he couldn't really argue with his logic. Also, even though he be dragging it with jumping at any opportunity to experiment on people, his experiments actually do pay off quite a lot. By the 1,000-year Blood War, we see he has experimented on the Arankar, which he was able to use to fight the Quincy's, and then even on some of the Goatee 13 when their lives were on the line. I remember Ikaku and some of the others expressing how it was fucked up to be doing that to his own comrades, but I don't know why they're so shocked. This is the same man who was blowing up his own squad members, so his little experiments here that were indirectly saving them is actually a step up from what he was doing before. But yeah, I know people feel like after everything Orochimaru has done, he pretty much gets off scot-free in Boruto, but I say Mayuri gets off scot-free from day one versus someone like Kisuke who got exiled. And when Mayuri actually does do something a little OD, they usually just brush it off as, oh, that's just Mayuri. Oh, and speaking of Konoha, someone asked in the last vid who's worse between the Soul Society and the Leaf. Well, here's how I see it. With Konoha, they be pretending they're so noble. Keep in mind Pain's speech.
What about my family? My friends? My village? They suffer the same fate as this village at the hands of you hidden leaf ninja. How is it fair to let only you people preach about peace and justice?
I legit think we're supposed to see them as the good ones, at least up until that arc. With the Soul Society, not so much. They very clearly start off the series as villains. We just get more insight as to why they're like this as time goes on. But there's plenty of times where they acknowledge how something is foul, but the law is above all. So I don't know, man. It's like, you gotta pick your poison. Action-wise, the Soul Society is definitely worse, but morally, I'm leaning on Konoha only because if there's one thing I hate, it's that fake shit. At least in the Soul Society, we know they're fucked up. Like, there's enough things that got done to Ichigo's face. He just chooses to ignore it. So when it comes to the whole Konoha versus the Soul Society thing, it's really like, do you want the foul shit done to your face? Or would you rather most of the shit be done in the dark? And then maybe you'll find out about it. One thing for sure though, I know I'd rather live in the Leaf. They be chilling for the most part. Fucking with the Soul Society, I might end up in the slums or on someone's lab table. So actually, yeah, I'm gonna say the Soul Society is worse. Alright, moving on. Before we get to our last issue, I did want to mention a few other ones I noticed while reading or rewatching, but with Bleach's lore being so deep, they didn't really fit anywhere specifically. So I guess we can call these honorable, more so dishonorable mentions. So firstly, the whole concept of hell. This is your spoiler alert if you plan on reading the Hell arc one shot. I'd skip ahead now. But yeah, regardless of the title of this vid, there actually is a hell in Bleach. If you've seen the movie Hellverse, the hell concept there is more so what you expect. You do bad, you go to hell. The canon version hell we get from the one-shot is a little different. While yes, sinners still go there, if a captain level Soul Reaper dies, guess who's going there too? Since their spiritual pressure is so dense, the Soul Society performs a ritual to send their soul away, but it's revealed that the ritual actually sends them to hell. That means characters like Yamamoto, Unohana, Ukutake are most likely in hell. And I'm not super shocked because look at all the other stuff we've been discussing, but still, that's a crazy twist on hell, and I can't wait until we get more on that. Next dishonorable mention would be how mod souls are treated. Since they were a part of the Spearhead project that was eventually deemed as too unethical, all mod souls were called to be destroyed. Now I get using corpses to fight is pretty crazy, but is that not what Mayuri was doing in the 1,000-year Blood War? Him and Giselle were literally having a zombie off. Yeah, unethical my ass. And even if you want to argue that the mod souls usage was still worse because they were using humans, alright, fine. But even if we go with that, why do they have to be destroyed? Just don't use them on corpses. We see they sometimes use soul candies and gigais in the world of the living anyways. So why not just use mod souls the same way Ichigo does with Kon? It would low-key be safer too. But I guess bland soul candies who can't even defend themselves are a-okay to use. But mod souls with emotions and personality, nah. Pack them up. I don't know, man. Creating them just to do them like that seems unethical in its own right. Even Ichigo voices this to Rukia, and she was just like, it's not up to me to decide. The law is the law. Loki sounded just like her brother. But I was happy to see she actually does end up saving Kon when Kisuke tries to take him back. Yeah, he's annoying, but he didn't deserve that. So I'm glad they did right by him. Another thing I wasn't feeling though was them dropping the Shiba clan as a noble family. It's apparently because Ishin gave up his powers to be with Ichigo's mom, and it didn't help that Kain died sometime after. But in actuality, we find out in the novel that they've been wanting them out. They were always the outcast due to them being more empathetic than the other noble families. Like the Shiba ancestor back then even openly disagreed with them doing what they did to the Soul King. So they were low-key been looking for a way to get them out of of there, and the same noble meeting where Tokinada was talking crazy to Byakuya actually confirms this. In the meeting, Tokinada suggests that they should reinstate the Shiba clan as a great noble. That way they'll be the 5, not 4 great nobles again, meaning they'll completely be over Central 46 in terms of governing power. But to further enforce his point, he's gonna be like, matter of fact, isn't it weird that the Shiba clan was easily removed in the first place? Mind you, his family was the main ones who pushed for that. But besides him trying to plot again, this also shows that they were in fact wrongly disgraced. Next dishonorable issue, we got their ideology versus the Quincy's. So back when I first ever watched Bleach, I definitely preferred the way the Soul Reapers handled hollows. They be purifying them instead of just offing them like the Quincy's. This gives their souls a chance to go through the cycle and be reincarnated. But nowadays, I can see Yhwach and the Quincy's points too. Lots of those souls end up in an endless cycle of suffering. Like, say you're a bum on Earth, you die and you're still a bum, but you eventually start making a decent living after years and years in Rukia. Randomly one day, you're one of those 28,000 souls that they had to off to keep the balance. Then you're back to square one on Earth. That's a terrible loop. But then again, is merging the 3 realms and having no more death really the answer either? I'd say no. But I don't know. Y'all gotta let me know how y'all feel on that one. Alright, this next one isn't really an issue, more so just a little observation. The Soul Society has done quite a few people wrong. Rukia, Kisuke, the Visors, the Shiba clan, the Fullbringers, etc. I made a joke before saying they're really the WWE by how much people still choose to go back. But have y'all noticed certain ones like Yoruichi and Kisuke will help out the Soul Society, but won't actually live there? I just thought it spoke volumes, because I'm sure they could go back in the Serite now if they wanted to. Same with the Shibas. But they choose not to. I know I have a couple theories on why that is, but I want to know what y'all think about that. And last but not least, we got them being freaks. Cause bro, I don't know if it's just me or if they really be on Nikki timing. Because in the Soul Society arc, Tokinada from Squad 4 says this.
Stop it! Please get away from me! I don't know what you're doing, but you have no right to come on to me like that. Besides, I'm not that kind of squad member, so stop it!
And bro, what do you mean by that?
Hanataro, what the hell were you just dreaming about?
Oh, you wouldn't want to know.
And then later, same arc, I don't know. I don't like how they were talking about Rukia's Gigai. You got one nigga slobbering, and then we got what looks like her legs bust open. I'm just saying, Mayuri is the head of this department, and with how he moves with his own quote-unquote daughter.
Is he reviving her?
Nothing would surprise me. But yeah, there's probably other things I'm forgetting to mention, because like I said, Bleach's lore is deep. But moving on to our final, but probably the biggest issue they have is their history and keeping the cycle alive. So as you can probably tell by now, the Can't Fear Your Own World novel gives us a lot of lore. And like I said before, I really hope it eventually gets animated, because there's way too much key info in it. And if you're an anime only watcher, which I usually am, you're missing a whole lot. Now I see what y'all were saying when I was talking about Ace being overhyped, and y'all kept telling me to read the novel, and I hit y'all with the, if they wanted it in the show, they should have put it in the manga. I mean, I still partly feel that way, only because we were talking about his skills and strength, but lore wise, I get it now. Anyways, we can't talk about the Soul Society's history and not discuss the original sin. The original sin is what the nobles did to the OG Soul King. At one point in time, everything existed in one realm. Life, death, hollows, and humans all living together in chaos. So the nobles decided this wasn't it and wanted to separate things, which leads to the betrayal of the Soul King. The Soul King didn't like that the hollows were constantly offing the humans, so he agreed to split the realms and then keep the balance. But never did he agree for them to slice his limbs off and stick him in that crystal. After they did what they did, the noble families became the ruling class, Central 46 became the new law, and the Goatee 13 became the military. But everyone's primary job was really to keep the balance. Now, here's where the cycle begins, because once you build a world on something like that, you have to protect that lie at all costs. And if you notice, every major conflict in Bleach traces back to the original sin. Aizen found out the truth, rebelled, and was trying to become an actual Soul King instead of them depending on a nigga in the crystal. Tokinada knew the truth and used the corruption to his advantage, really for shits and giggles. Yhwach also knew and wanted to completely undo the original sin, meaning pretty much going back to square one. So that's 3 different instances of the original sin coming back to bite them. And each time the Soul Society has to fight back to preserve the world as they know it. And this is where keeping the cycle alive comes in, because if something actually did happen to the Soul King, like we ended up seeing, the only thing they're gonna do is replace him to keep the balance. because actual reform would mean admitting the past was wrong, and honestly, it's just way easier to keep shit the way it is rather than figuring out an alternative to their current system. And yeah, that's basically the cycle we see throughout the series. Corruption creates order, order creates resentment, resentment leads to rebellion, rebellion threatens balance, and balance justifies more corruption, and it just keeps going. So until that changes, there will always be another Tosin, another Ginjo, even another necessary evil. That's what Aizen was referencing here, and again why I say care for your own world is so important. Niggas are actually addressing the root of everything. Plus we finally see people, specifically Shunsui and Shuhei, actually wanting to fix things within the system. But not gonna lie, this may be harsh, but I kinda see the 1,000-year blood war and everything Tokinada was doing in the novel as their karma for the original sin. Cause even first watching the 1,000-year blood war, I was like, damn, they're getting knocked off. I always say Bleach is the darkest out of the big three, and there's no Ren rebirth for this one. Anyways, I'm so sorry this took so long. Every time I thought I was done, I had something else to add, and it just ended up taking longer than I thought. But yeah, what do you guys think is the most problematic issue within the Soul Society? I'm honestly between 3 and 6, but y'all still let me know. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'm gonna leave y'all with this.